Welcome to Tech in Translation, the podcast where we break down the complexities of today's most innovative technologies into something we can all understand.
Brought to you by Ironbow Technologies, a next-generation solutions provider. We're committed to helping our customers across the government, education, commercial, and healthcare sectors turn their tech challenges into real, actionable outcomes.
At Ironbow, we believe that technology should be a tool for empowerment, not a source of confusion.
That's why each episode of Tech in Translation is designed to demystify the latest trends, tools, and technologies, making them accessible for everyone, whether you're a seasoned professional or just tech curious.
Join us as we translate complex tech into everyday language, one episode at a time. Welcome back to Tech in Translation. I'm your host for today, Fran Alatrashuke-Jofo. In this episode, we're talking about preparing your network for AI and what public sector leaders really need to know to get started. From use cases and roadblocks to infrastructure readiness, we'll cover how agencies can move from interest to action. Joining us are Dan Morehead, Cisco AI expert, and Nick Serapiglia, Managing Director of Digital Transformation at Ironbow Technologies. Dan, Nick, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Dan, let's go ahead and kick things off with you. What has Cisco observed when it comes to AI readiness in the public sector?
Yeah, well, first off, has there ever been a more exciting time to be earning trust and building that trust out with our customers than now? This AI revolution really dwarfs anything any of us have ever seen. And I actually have been in this business for 25 years. It reminds me of the convergence of voice, video, and data on the network. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, of course, Cisco was at the forefront of that. You had this market transition where this convergence was happening. And there was a lot of concern inside of organizations, right? You had two different IT organizations really with voice and data, and then you had the business community. When those things came together and organizations realized the value that could be driven out of this convergence, look what happened. The applications exploded. We had all of this different innovation that most of us can't really live with today. So when I think about the AI era, it dwarfs that. It really does. It's going to impact every industry and every organization. I think we're starting to see that. In terms of readiness, Cisco actually polled our global customer base and asked about readiness. We asked a lot of interesting questions. 78% of those organizations report that they're using AI today in at least one business function. 92% of those companies plan to increase their AI investments over the next 3 years. This index was reported 6 months ago. I bet you 100% of those companies would say they're investing in AI today and over the next 3 years. A couple other interesting facts. AI-ready data center demand is set to grow 33% annually through 2030, and that's a mid-range forecast. I want to highlight one answer that came back from this survey. 96% of CEOs rely on trusted partners to future-proof their networks for AI. Super critical to think about that as we go through this conversation today. In terms of the state of AI readiness in public sector, I think the good news is over the past few years, and this is across multiple administrations, we have policy that's directing agencies to establish AI strategy, identify a chief AI officer, align that strategy with a secure, scalable infrastructure, and reuse data and tooling. And do all of this, of course, in a trustworthy, transparent manner. So the policy's there. But we all know this new AI era is moving at such a rapid pace, and there are so many considerations that the execution of that strategy is going to take time. But there's pockets of momentum, certainly showing promise. But I would say, how prepared are agencies today? Not really ready for wide-scale AI adoption across the enterprise, but I don't think that's going to surprise anyone in the audience.
Yeah, you went right to it. I mean, with so many, that was a huge percentage of over 90% ready to invest more in AI and new positions and everything from strategy. Where do you see those gaps specifically in terms of preparedness? Like, is it infrastructure, is it strategy, or elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Based on the experience, I've been involved with roughly 15 different AI projects across civilian and DoD and some state and local markets. And for the most part, I see piloting. And piloting is okay. In fact, it's a really great place to start because you want to build momentum. The promise of a pilot is a great momentum builder, but often what I saw was that pilot would become powerful enough, meaning it would deliver enough value to an organization. The excitement begins to generate within an organization, but IT considerations have been left out, or the cyber office, the CISO's office has been left out. And when those organizations are not engaged early, that momentum will fade. And I think we may ask ourselves why. Why would momentum fade? I just highlighted a few things around IT being left out. But I think that folks need to understand that moving these AI projects from pilot to production requires several things, such as security posture. Not only the security related to the end-to-end architecture, but the security of the AI models that are being deployed in your environment. So securing the AI models along with the AI architecture, super critical. Network considerations, fundamental, right? My example of voice data video converging, think about the AI today. A bad user experience due to network latency will completely damage a use case and really deflate that momentum. I think the other thing would be predictable computational power in the data center with accelerated throughput. And I think the list goes on and on. But we are seeing areas of momentum, but overall, those gaps do need to be addressed for scale.
So I'm hearing a lot of foundational elements, and I think this is a great place to bring in our Iron Bow AI guy, Nick. How do you like the Italian emphasis I put on your name? I tried to make sure I captured that right.
Fran, I love it. I got to say, though, I've never heard you say your last name before, and I don't know that I could repeat that. I think if we train an AI model on how to say your last name, it should be able to accomplish anything it needs to at that point. It's incredible.
Oh my God, that's a great use case. We're going to do that next.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, you're saying a lot of the things that, when I talk about AI enablement, all of those foundational kind of aspects that you're calling out around security, infrastructure. I'm going to add one more to that. I would say data is critical as a foundational element in AI readiness. I think it's absolutely critical for us to be able to help our customers go from pilot to production into scale AI. It's less and less about the AI model itself, and it's more and more about the foundational aspects of the infrastructure, your security posture, whether or not your data is prepared. And I can't agree with you more. I mean, I think you make some fantastic points about some of that AI readiness that our customers are challenged with today.
I love it. I love the synchronicity here. Nick, what use cases so far are you seeing? Speaking of, use cases, but real ones being adopted right now across like the federal landscape?
So what I'm seeing right now is you have a lot of folks that are kind of looking at where they can gain some efficiencies. And one of the areas that I see starting to grow more and more relevance, and this is actually, I would say, at the SLED level all the way up to the federal level, is help desk automations. How can I make my help desk workers, the technicians, the people that are looking at ticket queues, how can I make them more efficient? And you're seeing the introduction of Gen AI into the help desk to be kind of a virtual assistant, if you will, in a tier one, taking over some of that tier one capability. We've seen this a little bit in the industry for a little while, not to great success. But I also think because we're finally getting to that nexus point to where infrastructure has caught up to the capability, we can start to drive more efficiencies and accuracies into the help desk. So we're seeing that start to kind of roll into the public sector. You look at things like physical security and safety. Using things like computer vision, we can now put eyeballs in front of the AI brain, if you will, that can start to see what we see and take action based upon that and alerting. And again, it's becoming more and more efficient as well as accurate based upon the fact that we're trying to catch up to where, those technologies are meeting. And I think one of the biggest areas that we've seen probably over the past 10 years is this idea of using machine learning for predictive maintenance. So think of like in the flight line, at a military installation, using machine learning to help predict when something's going to fail. That creates incredible efficiencies as well as reduces cost and also reduces how, the downtime, so to speak, of some of these, really expensive elements that are on the, that are supporting the warfighter. So that's some of the areas where I'm seeing a lot of growth in early adoption that we've really seen over the past few years now. It's just getting more accurate. It's getting better.
Very exciting. So a lot of help desk, machine learning. So Dan, I want to go to you with your years of experience and what you've seen at Cisco too. What use cases are you seeing?
Yeah, very, very similar. Nick did a great job of articulating that, right? Use cases are typically customer experience related, cost reduction scenarios, threat intelligence, and really anything, particularly with the way we're operating today, efficiency gains. So I think if I tie back a few of the comments I made earlier about gaps, one use case that I've seen is something called intelligent document processing, where our government agencies still have this massive paper problem. And they may have started a digitalization strategy, and now they need to lay AI on top of that strategy. So they've already gotten started. And with intelligent document processing, you can take that paper, scanners are available today. Those documents go in through the scanner. You apply machine learning to those documents as they become digitized, and you can look for fraud, or you can pre-populate within a user interface that drives efficiency gains. So that's a really exciting use case that I'm seeing in multiple areas across public sector. To tie it back to one of the gaps I highlighted earlier, I was a part of a use case for intelligent document processing where IT was left out. And when the momentum was built, IT was brought into the room, and this massive requirement for computational power presented itself and really gave everyone pause. So I think it just aligns with one of the themes from our conversation today, which is we have to include IT. We have to go horizontally across that organization. And we certainly, with our partnership, have some mechanisms to help with that.
Yeah, got to get
And
those
Dan,
foundations right. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, Dan, think about what's incredible when you start to introduce AI. I mean, the cost to build that AI for that document intelligence might seem like a large barrier to overcome. But when you start to compare it to the cost around how long is it going to take for me to process these physical documents, and how much computational power doing it the manual way, and how much manpower to do it the manual way, it's incredible the amount of efficiency and cost avoidance that a use case like that can bring to bear.
Those are huge. Are there particular areas where you see AI creating that measurable value already? I mean, you mentioned amazing use cases, the both of you, from predicting failure early on to detecting fraud through machine learning. Any measurable traction we're seeing yet? And we can start with you, Dan.
Yeah, I actually was very fortunate to be part of a use case in the DoD. And when we think about the DoD and we go into those first conversations, we're clearly thinking about the warfighter, right? Or how to position our country against adversaries. But oftentimes those are very difficult use cases, and you have to build momentum and believers within an organization. So very fortunate, again, to be a part of a use case where we went in talking about warfighter use case, predictive maintenance, as Nick has articulated earlier. But we ended up with a financial use case related to budgeting. And we applied machine learning to the budget to predict the line items in the budget that would not be spent in that fiscal year. And by doing that early enough in the fiscal cycle, those dollars were allowed to be repurposed to support the warfighter. So you just never know when you get into these conversations where you might end up. But I have to tell you, there was a massive number attached to that ROI, and there was some press coverage related to that project. So it was documented. It's just not Dan saying it was very valuable, but let's just say it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
I can imagine.
Dan, what was the name of that project?
It was called ULO. So ULO is unobligated line items. Unliquidated line items in a contract. And it was a very exciting project. And again, you built that momentum with that, where then the leadership said, how can we do more? How can we do more with AI? This is interesting. And that led to another use case called unmatched transactions that has to do with actually auditing the budget system. And so those use cases could literally be applied across any organization.
I love that EULA, and it sounds a little bit like YOLO. So I'm thinking you only get AI once, you only live once. Trying to tie it in there, but
I
that's
like
really,
it.
really exciting. I love that. So, I mean, I think we've talked about it a little bit, right? If you're not bringing in the IT or the cybersecurity teams early on, if you're not getting that data governance and the foundational parts right, that can really slow it down. What other things do you believe are slowing down momentum for AI deployments in public sector environments in particular? We could go with you, Nick.
I think, yeah, Fran, I think fear, right? I think there's a lot of fear around what am I introducing into my environment? Is it going to be meaningful? Can I do the things that I've invested all this money? Can I do that? Couple that with the fact that you have a landscape that's changing so rapidly. You have a lot of start and stop kind of activity. You have a lot of leaders as well as IT directors and just engineers in general that will keep saying, well, if we enter now, it's too early because it's going to change in another a week or 2 weeks. It used to be that, for instance, generative AI, when you're talking about a large language model, 2 or 3 years ago, when we started, talking about this more broadly, when it became a little bit more mainstream, we were talking about updates to a language model that were taking months or even over a year to now there's new updates to a language model that are happening daily. So when you start to apply that in the fear that it kind of creates around what if I, make a recommendation for my leadership to invest in this now, but something changes, then I have to go back and re-architect. I think that's causing a lot of trouble and a lot of problems in the market today in terms of how do I safely adopt AI? How do I introduce AI into my ecosystem, gain benefit from it, but also not feel like, I bought an old car and the new shiny object is out there.
Yeah, that's a deep one. Fear of the unknown. I like that. That's a good example. And there's fear is a really good one. Is there more to add on when it comes to the technology, or is there a leadership buy-in barrier, procurement processes? Is it all a combination out there?
I would completely agree with everything Nick said. And I think to expand on that, I do believe organizational alignment is critical. And I think when we look at these executive orders that have come out, right, it's really calling for organization, it's calling for a strategic plan. But when you look in those strategic plans, each one of them talks about security, infrastructure, talent. And I think that bringing those things together and getting people responsible for those pillars in the same room and speaking the same language and understanding the dependencies of each is critical. And that's a monumental challenge, right? That's not trivial at all. And when you align the fear that Nick's talking about with that, right, it just makes it very challenging. And I think, again, our partnership, right, I think there's some mechanisms that we have that we're bringing to market that should help with that. But you have to start. You have to build momentum. You can't allow the fear to put you in a position where you're just worried about what the next release is of technology.
And Dan, if I may add a data point for you. So we keep dancing around the same topic, right? It's infrastructure, it's security, and it's data. And something that I was reading the other day that really kind of brings this home for me, 80% of an AI project time is spent preparing data. So think about that. If I, and, I know, that it was kind of a what else beyond, Fran, was the question, but to drive home the point that Dan and I are both making, if you're not ready for AI, if you haven't really thought about the foundation, if you haven't built the foundation of the house, it's going to fold like cards. And I would say that data is really key and foundational to that. And that's why I'm so excited, not to shameless plug, but that's why I'm so excited about working with Dan with Cisco is, I think we bring a lot of industry knowledge to the table around data, and we work with you guys around the rest of that foundation, security, infrastructure. It's a really good match for us, to kind of bring to bear around data, infrastructure, and security, and help our public sector understand how to build that foundation while helping to, solve, answer some of the fear conversation, help them, reassure them, if you will.
Yeah, Nick, I like that. That's actually a really good segue because, Dan, I think you mentioned a huge percentage we're also turning to partners for help to kind of get their AI and data strategies together. So in terms of Cisco specifically, how is Cisco helping government agencies move forward with AI?
Yeah, I completely agree with Nick. And for the audience, I do want to emphasize there's no one size fits all technology provider around the globe, anywhere, that can do end to end everything required for AI. So you may not hear me talk about data, but clearly Nick and his team can bring that skill set to the partnership, and we can help advance our customers' AI journeys. In terms of Cisco, I think we're getting really good at understanding what value we do bring to the AI era. I was actually at Cisco from 2011 to 2016. I left to disrupt myself and I went to AI startups. And I think the reason I wanted to get back to Cisco, I came back 6 months ago, was because I always remembered the talent we had in the organization, the partnerships we had with the likes of you, and the trust that our customers had in Cisco in terms of making sure that network was stable to support the mission. And of course, data center collaboration, the security portfolio, all those things really combine what our value is with AI to the global marketplace. I think we have this rare combination that includes the following: trusted infrastructure, AI-driven security, a commitment to responsible AI, and a dedicated team of consultative AI professionals that are eager to help our clients navigate in this AI era. And of course, the partnerships we have with the likes of Ironbow. So I think our value proposition, the question was, how is Cisco helping agencies move forward? I think there's some mechanisms that we can talk about, like workshopping, like trying to organize our customers, like emphasizing to IT that AI has left the train station in your organization. Let's go help you get out in front of that so you can help your own organization be AI ready. But our value proposition at Cisco really revolves around enabling organizations to deploy AI at scale through secure, reliable, and high performance infrastructure. And I think that's a critical thing to consider. Then you can add security, you can add some of the other components that we believe are required end to end for AI.
Well, I love that. And I love the partnership love here with Ironbow and Cisco. So really appreciate that too. I think you just mentioned a really powerful framework that really should help with AI readiness. In terms of just where to get started, do you recommend certain support or tools just to help them kind of get started?
One of the things that we're continuing to emphasize, and I know you have this capability as well, is to do some type of interactive workshopping where me speaking to a customer, you bring someone from your organization into that workshop that you may not work with on a daily basis. That might be a data scientist, right? That might be a data engineer. That might be someone from the business community. And begin to just explore and collaborate on what AI means to your organization. And generally speaking, you might have a clean whiteboard, right? And by the end, you'll have use cases up there. You'll start to rank those use cases. You'll align that to where you are from an infrastructure perspective. You'll pick a starting point to build that momentum. So I think this workshopping concept is critical. And I think it's a great way to get started. I think the other emphasis for us is really around AI education, right? Everyone needs to educate themselves on AI, and we can help with that.
Yeah, and I love the idea around that you're putting out around workshops. I can't agree with you more. I call them, workshops or quick start engagements, but it's a way to help the customer identify where they're at today and what they're trying to achieve. And we really kind of hone in and talk about what are the gaps, that are preventing them from achieving that. And I think you laid it out really well. And really, I think I want to steal that is try to get different members of the community, from a customer perspective, whether they're technical or business or, leadership focused, and try to bring that and mind meld that together in one. I think it's a great way to start to understand, the technicians and the engineers need to understand, beyond the ones and the zeros, what are they driving towards? And that's where the leadership and, the business folks can help them. So I love that. I love that approach.
Just to expand on this point, I talked about a few use cases that have delivered significant value to customers. If I think back to being in the Army Navy Club, which is where we work, we did this educational workshop and we filled up these whiteboards with ideas. And the different individuals were, leaders, IT leaders, business leaders, right? Military leaders in that room. And we kind of did the XY axis. And the most valuable use case that was identified really was around predictive maintenance. But as we began to uncover what's required to successfully move a predictive maintenance use case from inception to pilot to production, it was extremely complex. So we started to bring out other use case ideas. And it's why we ended up starting with the financial use case, because we identified that the data was accessible. There was a subject matter expert. There was buy-in from a leader. And then we combined those things and piloted. And then the results from the pilot were so impressive that, quite frankly, it was always just going to be a pilot. But when the results were articulated, it was move this into production as fast as you can. I do have proof points that these workshops work really well. It's just really hard to organize, but never give up. We have to continue to emphasize bringing these folks together and having meaningful conversations.
I love that. Speaks to the power of the pilot. So very, very exciting. Shameless marketing plug. I have to ask. So with the workshops and everything, are you saying there's a possibility some of our customers could get Dan and Nick in the same room workshopping with them together?
Absolutely. Would love nothing more.
We can only hope.
That would be amazing. All right. Can't make any promises, but we just seeing, got to get our customers to bite. So very exciting. Nick, if you were advising an agency just beginning its AI journey, where would you recommend that they start? I think I know the answer, but let me just see if you surprise us.
Fran, I think you're going to hear a common theme that I've been parroting this entire time, as well as Dan. I'm going to say start with data. And I'm probably going to sound like the Brady Bunch here, right? Data. So start with the data. I look at our customers, and if you look within their business, their mission, their unit, their agency, whatever you want to call it, I think what's going to happen is over time, a lot of us are going to become our own data curator. So just something kind of leaning towards, I think that's going to, over time, that's going to become the new, way that we operate is curating the data so that we can feed these models. Beyond that, though, you've got to make sure that you have, to Dan's point, he said this very well earlier. I probably won't say it nearly as well, but you have to make sure you have an infrastructure strategy that meets the requirements without ballooning both your budget and stressing the data center from a power and cooling perspective. That's going to become really important. So we talk about AI-ready data, and then there's AI-ready infrastructure. Also, understand the various parts of the framework where AI introduces new risks so that you can make sure that you have AI-ready security posture. AI is accelerating the things that we can do, but it's also accelerating the risk into our enterprise. So not having a good security strategy and a good AI-ready security posture is going to really open up Pandora's box if we're not prepared for that. So if I'm advising an agency where to begin, it's those three areas: AI-ready data, AI-ready infrastructure, and AI-ready security. One thing Dan just said, though, around piloting and some of the things that they did, is kind of my final point that I want to bring to bear is start small. Understand a high impact targeted use case that can be achieved while you're fixing some of these AI ready issues, data infrastructure and security in parallel, but something that can bring a high level of impact, that allows the agency or customer to achieve that success, gain some momentum while they're in parallel working on fixing the problem. One final comment I want to make, Dan, before I turn it over to you if you have any thoughts here. And this is kind of a one for the humans comment. Something that I see that's happening today is some of our leaders are thinking, in my opinion, in the wrong direction. I want to encourage our leaders to think big, meaning stop looking at AI as a way to reduce the humans that need to be involved in the loop, so to speak. I've got 100 employees. How can I achieve the same results with just 10 of them using AI? I want them to think bigger than that. How do I achieve more by taking the 100 employees that I have today and 10xing their capabilities so that I can achieve more and more, become more efficient?
No, I like that. That's a very
Sure.
optimistic spin. I mean, because that
Yeah.
always comes up with the human factor, right? Is AI coming to take my job? But I
Yeah.
think you touched on it. It's like, how can AI make us more superhuman, not necessarily replace us?
Yes.
Because you're always going to need a head chef to help the AI
Right.
sprinkle it, season it the right way. So that's a great point. Dan, how about you in terms of advising agencies on where to start?
Yeah, Nick's on point with all of his thoughts, so I won't repeat those. They're all critical, important aspects of an AI journey. I would add to those education. I've talked about some of these things, right, in a conversation today. Education is critical. Organizing the right way and actually collaborating across the organization. Believe it or not, it's difficult for some of our clients, right? We want to help fix that. Piloting, as Nick said, and then I think I opened up the conversation today with survey results where 96% of CEOs are relying on their most trusted partnerships. And I think it's a critical point to make today because, as we know, every day when we wake up, hopefully with an enthusiasm for AI that's unknown to mankind, that enthusiasm, that excitement, that passion, we read the latest headline, right? The latest AI headline. And that's just us as individuals. We're professionals in this AI space. Think about what our customers are dealing with from an incoming perspective, right? So I think it's critically important for our customers to rely on their most trusted partnerships and harness that. And I think that hopefully we've done a good job articulating the things that Cisco brings to the market in the AI era, and most certainly the things that a combination of the Ironbow Cisco partnership can bring to the market. I think it's a really critical aspect to rely on trust, and we as individual professionals need to continue growing that trust and that influence on a daily basis.
Yes, that trust is a huge key factor. So I love how you mentioned that, Dan. So we have a lot of great, really good key themes and takeaways. Obviously, the importance of data and the foundation, the infrastructure readiness, the security, the collaboration component, working with partners, trust, so many good tidbits here. But if we had to summarize it, Dan and Nick, if there's just one key takeaway or message you want public sector leaders to remember about preparing their networks for AI, what would it be? We'll start with you, Dan.
So I think for me to answer that question, it's just proactive urgency as a customer, right? I hear answers from IT teams all the times that, they say something like, I know someone is thinking about AI, but I'm not sure what they're doing, right? I've personally experienced enough AI related projects to say that everyone is exploring AI. And from a readiness perspective, I think the best approach in terms of readiness, that is that IT needs to demand a seat at the AI table. Otherwise, our IT clients will be blindsided by the requirements for computational power, security, integration, and of course, network requirements related to AI. If you miss any of those as you begin to scale from pilot to production, you're going to be behind. You're going to have to go back and fix things. So I think my message is we want to earn the opportunity to be partnered with our core customers, which for the most part are in IT, but we want to help them with the confidence to demand a seat at the table when the AI strategy is being developed and, of course, implemented.
Nice one. Excellent. How about you, Nick?
If I was going to take everything I said today and kind of summarize it in one kind of simple statement, AI isn't magic. You can't bolt AI onto a broken foundation. It's a system that our customers must enable. We must help them enable. There's no AI outcome without AI readiness. So data, infrastructure, security readiness are the mission critical runway for AI success. And when I look at some of the things, Dan just mentioned around, what we can do to help enable them, that's my key message that I deliver to anybody that cares to listen is if it's not just about talking AI with the business leaders, it's about talking to our teams that we are already talking to today and helping them to enable to achieve success. How can I enable them for AI? And that's by making sure that they understand their relevance in the position and power that they play, the seat at the table they must be a part of in order to have success is a part of this overall outcome that we're trying to drive towards. if you don't have your compute storage team at the seat, the table with the AI leaders, understanding the impact of their environment, if you don't have the network admins with a seat at the table, understanding, potentially the topology changes, some of the new bandwidth requirements, for instance, it's going to be a problem. And same thing with the security teams. If we're not making sure that they're at the table, understanding the new risks, there's going to be problems. So we all play a part in this, and enabling our customers to help them understand the part that they play, I think, becomes critical.
I like that. Enabling, everybody's a key player. We want to make everybody ready for AI. So bringing everybody into the room. I like that. So lastly, to send our listeners off, hopefully a little bit more, less overwhelmed and more optimistic about the future of AI, what's one big development you expect to see in AI planning or infrastructure strategy over, let's say, the next 2 to 3 years? We'll start with you, Dan.
Yeah, Nick touched on this earlier when he was talking about agentic AI and 10xing or 100xing us as individuals. And I think over the next 2-3 years, how many times have at least me personally have said, boy, I need an assistant, right? But I haven't been able to justify an assistant inside the organizations I've worked for. But now I'm going to have an assistant. We're all going to have assistants. We're talking a few years out, right? And we're starting to see those assistants show up today. We're certainly at Cisco fusing AI throughout our portfolio, and some of the results of that are assistants to help 10x, 100x an individual, not reduce an individual. So I think what's very exciting to me, we're going to come back and grade these predictions, but I do think that we're all going to have the opportunity to have an assistant, and we have to educate ourselves. We have to determine what that assistant might do for us. But the idea here is, if you don't educate yourself, if you don't follow these trends, if you don't engage yourself in AI as an employee anywhere, there are going to be opportunities where those AI assistants might take over your role, but we want to 10x our roles.
Oh, I love that. All right. We're going to come back to and hold you to that, Dan. Hoping for our AI assistants. I'm looking for a Rosie the robot to help me clean my house. That would be great. So we'll have to recircle back on that. How about you, Nick?
I'm gonna focus a little bit kind of on infrastructure on my answer here. And NVIDIA, shamelessly, don't come after me with your AI robots for this prediction. So I look at the next 2 to 3 years from an AI infrastructure perspective. I think we're going to be shifting from the bigger is better mentality that we've kind of been driving towards, and what's really added a lot of market value to NVIDIA, to more of a smarter is faster approach to AI. And what I mean by that is, the big players like NVIDIA working with Facebook and working with, some of these big hyperscalers, they're chasing these billion-dollar GPU farms. We're not competing in that space. Customers don't compete in that space, nor can they pay for these very expensive GPU farms. So I think the real disruption that's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years is going to happen closer to the edge. It's going to be smaller, more efficient models that are running on affordable, fit-for-purpose compute. So NVIDIA is the giant today, but I really see Intel and AMD specifically, and some of the others, due to what they're doing to help enable some of this training and running some of this AI closer to the edge and running on cheaper, faster CPU infrastructure. It's gonna enable AI meeting the mission where it lives, so that we're going to have a lot more AI use cases that are able to be brought to the market that aren't necessarily as expensive as what we've seen today from some of these giant GPU farms.
That's really interesting, because that, I feel like, almost parallels the government journey from cloud first to cloud smart. So it sounds like you're saying we're going to be going from AI first to AI smart down the road. So very
You heard it here first.
Nice. I'm going to circle back on that one too. Very exciting. Well, that is our time. Thank you so much, Dan from Cisco, and our very own Nick Serapiglia for joining us. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe to Tech in Translation on your favorite podcast listening platform. And for more insights into AI readiness, digital strategy, and secure modernization, visit ironbow.com/Cisco Solutions. Until next time.